thought that was amazing. You know what? As much as I don't want to hear it, I want to lie to myself. The truth is the truth. That's it. I'm going back to keeping Shabbat. Yeah, I'm going back to keeping Shabbat. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling me the truth.
What is this truth that he's talking about that is transforming his life to keeping Shabbat again? Even more interesting, what's the lie that caused him to stop keeping Shabbat? After doing tshuva, after helping other people do tshuva, what kind of lie can cause a person to stop keeping Shabbat? Even more so, we live in a world where lies have become standard, but there are certain places where we know that there are liars already, and sometimes they still get people to listen, and they still get people to watch. The media, movies, politicians. But the unexpected place has always been people of authority from the world of religion. Rabbis, teachers, people that represent the truth. For them to be liars is a destruction of our society. And unfortunately, it's happened and it's happening again. This is one of the reasons why the Chazon Ish in this series has been spending so much effort to expose the lies from within us, from within society, and address them, and face them, and at least know lies to be lies, and not turn the lies into true. There's one big lie that has been tormenting society for the last several thousand years. A lie unlike any other. A lie that is destroying society today because somehow it's turned into an accepted truth. A lie that all the common enemies of the Jewish people have, whether it be the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, all of them have this common denominator. A lie that somehow certain rabbis, certain leaders are now teaching as true. These rainbow people are teaching us lies. But somehow, they're fooling some of us to believe that those lies are true. Who are the rainbow people? Watch, learn, share, and BeEzrat HaShem, be holy. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Baruch Hashem, Shavua Tov to everybody. We're starting a new week, continuing our series of the Chazon Ish, Emunah and Bitachon, and really the Jewish HaShkafa, the Jewish ideology, trying to get a better idea of how to think straight in a crooked world. The sages call this world Alma de Shikar, the world of lies, and I think it's not a big, does not, you don't require a big IQ to realize it really is a world of lies, but unfortunately the lies sometimes blind people, and BeEzrat HaShem, the Chazon Ish has been helping us uncover many of these lies. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema for Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Avimori David Ben Esriya, Imimorati Doris Bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to contribute and help us in every way that they can, whether it would be money or with their time and their skills. And Baruch Hashem, there's a lot to do and a lot we're doing, Baruch Hashem. So with that being said, we have many orders for all of you that have ordered things from the Kiruv store. Many orders have taken a little longer than typical, but don't worry, there's quite a few orders going out and will arrive at your homes in the next couple of days, BeEzrat Hashem. Anyone that wants to order some of the USBs or the my favorite, which is the these DVDs and also these cards, these movie cards to their community, order them now. Baruch Hashem, we still have some left before the next big order is coming. And you go to bhkiruv.org. bhkiruv.org. That's B as in BeEzrat, H as in Hashem. Kiruv is KIRUV.org. Or you can go to kiruvstore.org. Both of them are the same website. And you can get some stuff for free. And also, if you want to donate, you want to help us with this and become a partner, that's also a place to donate, aside from our other websites, bhtorah.org and BeEzratHashem.org and Baruch Hashem, many other places. Also, aside from that, we just launched a new website for those of you that are Hebrew speakers. BeEzrat Hashem, one day we'll have it in English as well. but this is a Hebrew speakers website specifically fighting against the liars that are coming from the missionary world, the Christian missionary world. Unfortunately, has been attacking the people of Israel in Israel for the last several years. We've been fighting them tooth and nail, and Baruch Hashem winning. But there's never enough, because there's always new lies, which we'll actually discuss tonight, coming from the missionary world. So there's a new missionary, anti-missionary website that we have, which is Messianic Judaism Exposed. Messianic Judaism Exposed, and the website is there. I think it's messianicjudaism.org, something like that. I'm forgetting the website, but Baruch Hashem, it's a new website. We have many websites, many different ways to get to you guys, Baruch Hashem, and try to help as many people as possible. Aside from that, there's a lot of other updates, but we really need to get to the Shiur. We really need to fight the good fight here against the world of lies. Why the world of lies? The Chazon Ish, in this chapter 4, has really been delving into the world of lies and helping us try to attack it. The first time we approached it, we covered a lot of ground, but we didn't go into the specifics. And perhaps tonight, we'll spend a little bit more time going into the details, because unfortunately in the world of lies, the lies continue to grow. If the lies are unanswered, they grow even more. If the lies are answered, they grow, but at the very least, you're able to save some people that are yearning for the truth, that are looking for the truth. And unfortunately, today, there are many, many people lying, and perhaps not as many looking for the truth as we would like, but needless to say, there are some. And as the Rambam says in his introduction to the Guide to the Perplexed, I write this book not for the 10,000, but rather for the one, where even if there was a crowd of 10,000 people, and I knew already that 9,999 of them will reject this truth, and one will accept the truth, I would still write this book for him, for that person that's looking for the truth. And the same concept goes with all of Gdolei Israel and all of those that want to go in the footsteps of Gdolei Israel, that want to fight against the lies. And the lies are not the lies that the media spends their time chasing after just to get ratings. The lies are not the ones that people like to talk about as if they can do anything about them. The lies are the things that are very much having to do with your lives. Each and every single one of you, whether you're Jew or Gentile, there are many lies out there that have a direct impact on every single home. And if we don't address them, they're simply going to be accepted as truth. So the Chazon Ish, he brought a few things for us to consider. And in the world that we live in today, unfortunately, these are things we have to delve into constantly. He says, V'amru, and he's bringing a verse from the Torah, from the Nevi'im, Tzem michatzato sheken ketiv dover shkarim lo yikon leneged einai. Tzem michatzati. So the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 102b, brings a couple of different examples of lies that were told by different people and mentioned in the Torah. And the first one is the lie of someone that died already. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin brings the story of Navos the Yizraelite. And Navos the Yizraelite, for anyone who doesn't know, he was a decent human being, a good guy. Everything was going good, and he actually happened to be a relative of the evil Ahab. And Ahab was a evil king of Israel, and that worshipped idols and followed the footsteps of his evil non-Jewish wife. Izebel was her name, and she made it a thing to kill prophets. She loved killing prophets, and she had false prophets to idolatry. One day, Ahab sees that his neighbor to his palace, but also his family member, Navos, had a piece of land that he really wanted, and he offered him some money for it. And Navos said, "No, I'm sorry, this is something that is very precious to me. It's been given to me from my father, from his father, from his father. This is something that's much more valuable than simply money. And I'm not interested in selling it. He offered him some more money, and Navot said, no, you're not understanding. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in selling this piece of land. Now, Jewish people have been in the real estate business for a very, very long time, perhaps longer than anybody else, as we know in the Torah, where Avraham Avinu bought the Me'arat Machpela from what's his name? I'm losing his name. I'm losing track of things. Excuse me. Okay, I'll think of it later so I don't waste your time. But Avraham Avinu forgot. I'm forgetting. Avraham Avinu bought Me'arat Machpela and made a purchase that today we understand its value much more than perhaps the people understood back then. As Me'arat Machpela has been the place where Efron, the evil Efron, he bought the Me'arat Machpela and he bought it from him. And really back then it seemed like he was spending so much money on a gravesite for his wife. It didn't really make much sense. But needless to say, this is something that we see its value today, where we know that our Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Adam HaRishon, are all buried in the same place. It's a holy site. Unfortunately, it's controlled by Arabs. Today, even though you can visit certain parts of it, we certainly do not have complete freedom over it. But needless to say, this is one of the real estate purchases that's mentioned in the Torah. We also have the purchase of the land by David HaMelech. So there are many key sites that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure to mention them in the Torah because, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that they will hold weight, or at least they should hold weight, at times like today, where the land of Israel is being disputed by all of the liberals that are supporting the Palestinians, even though these liberals many times never even stepped a foot into the land. So the world of lies is not something that just stops at politics. It's something that also affects our own backyard, whether it be Israel or it be the Jewish community around the world. Needless to say, the land purchasing by Avraham is certainly something that stood out in the Torah. Another piece of land purchase that didn't happen was this land purchase that was supposed to happen by Achaz, but when he got rejected, he simply couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept it. And when he went home and his wife, his evil wife, Izebel, saw his long face, saw that he's sad, she asked him, why are you sad? He says, because I want to buy this piece of land from Navot, and he won't sell it to me. He won't sell it to me, even if I offered him a lot more money. So she says, don't worry, let me take care of it. You're the king. Why would you ever even waste an effort, a tear over any of these things? I'll take care of it. So what did she do? She, in essence, fooled people to believe that Navot really was going against the kinghood, which anyone that goes against the kinghood gets a death penalty. And if they get a death penalty, the assets that they have are given to the king himself. And that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, Navot had his own account in Shamayim of why Hashem allowed him to die. We're not going to get into that part. What we are going to get into is what the Gemara brings. The Gemara brings that the time came for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to kill Ahab. This very same monster that worshipped idols, that caused Am Yisrael to worship idols, that led to the murder of Navot, him and his wife, and many, many other people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had enough of this guy, and it was time to kill him. So, a prophecy came to all of the prophets at the same time. All the prophets got a prophecy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to everybody, asking who volunteers to be the one to bring the false prophecy that's going to fool Ahab, to make him think that he can go to war and win, because that's where he will die. From there, by the way, we learn multiple things. Number one, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a certain level of respect even for the evil kings. And the reason why is because if someone is made a leader, that's because Hashem put him there. It's not because of his popularity or speaking ability or any other thing that's his own attribute. Hashem simply puts specific people at a position of power. Once they're at a position of power, Hashem, in essence, controls certain things that they do, but he treats them as if they're messengers of his, and thereby he doesn't kill them like he kills everybody else. Everything is planned differently, as we saw with Paro, as Hashem hardened his heart, but then at the end did not actually kill him. He was the one Egyptian that was left. He actually ended up becoming the king of another country, where Yonah Navi came to prophesy and tell them that if they don't do tshuva, then Hashem will destroy them. Of course, this is something that Paro knew already from Mitzrayim, and he did tshuva. Now, the point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now planning on killing Ahab. We would think, from our lowly minds of human beings, that if he wants to kill somebody, just simply make him disappear. But it doesn't work that way with kings. He sent these kings prophecies, whether it was Ahab, or it was Nebuchadnezzar, or the other kings, Belshazzar. Evil kings even got prophecies, through different people. But here we see a unique thing. We see that Hashem is actually looking to send a false prophecy. And he's looking at his prophets, asking who would like to be the false prophet. While none of the prophets want to be the one to deliver words of lies, while they're thinking about doing, not doing, the spirit, the soul of Navot arrives at this judgment and says, I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to take revenge against him since he murdered me, since he killed me unjustly. I want to be the one that takes revenge against him. And the Gemara says, Hashem says to Navot, okay, you can do it, but get out of here now. So then the Gemara asks, why is Hashem kicking him out? I mean, he just volunteered to do your will, to make Ahab think that he's going to go to war and win. That's what you wanted. So why are you kicking him out? The Gemara explains, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is midah, his signature, his ultimate attribute that he wants to instill into the world is truth. That's what the Torah is. Torah is truth. One of the things that we see in truth, the word truth is emet. What is emet? Emet means that it has to be true from beginning to end. Because if something is 99% true, that means it's 100% lie. And that's why emet, the word truth in Hebrew, is spelled Aleph, Mem, Taf. Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. Taf is the last letter of the alphabet. And Mem is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. To teach us that if you're going to say the truth, the beginning, the middle, and the end has to be truth. No part can be false for it to be true. If any one of the parts is missing truth, the whole thing is false. So here HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a message that he wants to bring into the world in order to kill this Ahab. Navot volunteers, says, okay, do it, but get out of here. Why? I can't stand the lie. Yeah, but it's your message. You're right, it's my message, but I still can't stand it. You're right, it's my message, Hashem says, but I still can't stand it. It's disgusting to me. So the Gemara says, Tzeh mechitzati, leave my presence. Why leave my presence? As David HaMelech says, the speaker of lies cannot abide before me. Someone that speaks lies, I can't even look at him. So from there we learn that anyone that wants to have any remote chance of their blessings, their prayers reaching Hashem, has to be a speaker of truth. Anyone that wants the remotest chance of being close to Hashem has to speak the truth, and only the truth. Now, of course, in a world of lies, this can become hard. Hence the reason why we have to make sure that we are warned about where the lies are, what the lies are about, and needless to say, what eventually is going to happen with these liars. Rav Nisim Karelitz was the nephew of the Chazon Ish. Our own dear Chazon Ish, that we're learning his series already for some time. He was a very dedicated Talmid Chacham that did not waste any words. So much so that he was sitting at a certain place in the Bet Midrash for 4.5 years, at the same place every day, 4.5 years. And another Talmid Chacham sat next to him for that same period. And that Talmid Chacham said, for 4.5 years, I'm sitting right next to him. He's learning, I'm learning. 4.5 years. He never even said hello, goodbye, nothing. Why? The time I arrived, he was already learning. Time I left, he's still learning. There's no chit-chat in between. There's just learning Torah. He didn't waste any words. And his dedication to the Torah and not to waste words was noticed by everybody. So much so that a couple of Talmidim got his attention one time and said, Kvod Rav, how do you do it? How do you not speak about anything other than when you're learning? The Rav smiled at them and went back to learning. Went back to learning. Even at the Hesped, when they asked him to speak on behalf of one of the family relatives, there was also an extraordinary Talmid Chacham. His wife passed, and they asked him to speak. His words were, right now it's Chol HaMoed, and we're not allowed to give an Hesped. But I know that some people ask me to speak, and I also know that many don't want me to speak. And this is all we'll say. And he stepped away. This is it. This is the speech. This was the speech. In so many words, identifying the issue, notifying those that are from both sides, he's aware, and that's it, the end. Conclusion. Not a single word extra. One time, Rav Karelitz tells a story of what the Chazon Ish told him when he was young. The Chazon Ish told me, he says, that a Rav cannot rebuke on everything when it comes to customs and HaShkafa. Of course, if it's halacha, if somebody's violating Shabbat, eating non-kosher, or immodest, that you have to rebuke. That's from the Torah. There is no way around it. The obligation to rebuke is an obligation from the Torah. There's no way around that. If you don't rebuke, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah, in Masechet Sanhedrin, in Masechet Shabbat, and countless other parts of the oral Torah say that anyone who sees another Jew sinning and does not rebuke them, the sin goes on them too. He just violated Shabbat, you didn't rebuke him, you violated Shabbat. He just served an idol, you didn't rebuke him, you just served an idol. A person could arrive after 120 years at the Bet Din of heaven thinking that he observed Shabbat, observed mitzvot, and all of a sudden they give him an account. Oh yeah, over here on this such and such day, you violated Shabbat. Whoa, you drove on Shabbat, went to the casino? Oh yeah. Whoa, I never went to a casino in my life, you're going to say. I never went to a casino. What casino? What are you talking casino? Whose casino? I don't even know what the casino is. What are you talking about? Me, Chilul Shabbos. I'm a from Yid. You see the payout and everything. The Bet Din of heaven say, what do you mean? Right here it says, look, your next door neighbor for 30 years. You said Shabbat Shalom and saw him. Instead of saying Shabbat Shalom, he left and he went to his car and he went to the casino. You didn't say a single word. He went to the casino on Shabbat. You knew. And you didn't say anything. What do you think? That's free? You could just let your brother go kill himself and say nothing? The Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, one of the biggest giants that we ever had in Am Yisrael all throughout all of history. So much so that his rabbi said, put all of the sages on one side, all of the sages in the world on one side, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah on the other side, and he outweighs them all. That's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. One time the Gemara Masechet Shabbat says he saw that his neighbor was a widow. Her husband died, miskena, poor lady. And she didn't know much, and she left the bells on the cow. So the cow was carrying, she had a cow. People in those days had cows, either for milk, to sell, all types of things. And she had some stuff on the cow during the week, and she didn't take them off on Shabbat. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah knew this is Chilul Shabbat. Why? The cow is working. She's carrying on Shabbat. But he figured, she's a widow. Oh man, she's already miskena, she's already suffering so much already. She doesn't have a husband. She has to deal with everything on her own, with the kids. I'm going to bother her. Later that night, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah got a message from Shamayim. Said, you're Mechalel Shabbat. Mechalel Shabbat, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the biggest giant in the world, that all of the sages are on one hand, he's on the other hand, he outweighs them all. They counted him as a Mechalel Shabbat on... What? Yes. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah started doing tshuva. First, of course, he told the neighbor. But then he fasted. The Gemara says he fasted for 19 years. Morning to night, eat, morning to night, maybe a week at a time, all types of extraordinary times, so much so that eventually all of his teeth turned black. His entire mouth turned black from all the fasts. Why? He was counted as a Mechalel Shabbat because he didn't rebuke his neighbor. For what? For the cow that was carrying the bills. So we see from here how deep the truth is. Now the Torah Kedosha tells us that Navos the Yizraelite wanted to be the messenger of this false message. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go do it, but get out of here. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. Now, of course, we're going to ask the question of how is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has somebody do the message, but he doesn't want to see it? We answered it already. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is 100% truth. Now, the Chazon Ish told Arav Karelitz that you cannot rebuke the people about everything that has to do with HaShkafa. Halacha, you already learned from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Don't fall into the trap. You see somebody doing something wrong that's against Torah, you have to say something. But if you see somebody is not correct on other things, that it's not like a must, don't correct everything. Why? Because if you correct on everything, you're going to be known as the rabbi that corrects on everything. And therefore, if you ever miss one of the things that they're doing and you don't correct it, they're going to conclude that since you did not correct them there, that means you agree. And therefore, all of the sins, all of the mistakes, all of the problems that will come from their mistake will fall on your shoulders. So don't be one of those that corrects everything. Correct only the things that are absolute musts. Okay. The first test that Arav Karelitz had was when they called him, the Keilah called him to the Torah. And they said, Ya'aleh Rabbeinu Arav Nisim Karelitz. Now, Arav Nisim Karelitz, that wasn't his full name. He also had other names. Yeshayahu, and really when you go up to the Torah, you're supposed to say the full name. But he thought before he said it, wait. My uncle, the Chazon Ish, said, don't rebuke on everything. Don't rebuke on everything, even though they didn't say my full name, and they're supposed to say my full name. Let this one slide. Okay, beseder. No problem. His dveikut to the truth was shown even more later on. As Arav Karelitz was known to go to the Netz Minyan early in the morning, their first Minyan. And one time, on Shabbat, he woke up late. And he missed the first minyan, so he went to the second minyan that, starts, let's say, at 8 o'clock in the morning, instead of going to the 6:30 minyan. Now, it happened to be that second minyan had a brit milah. One of the people in the keilah had a son, and they're doing a brit milah, a circumcision, on the 8th day. So when they saw the rabbi come, they were so happy. The rabbi came to the brit milah. Wow! So, of course, after the brit milah, the person, the Abba, the father of the child, came to the Rav Kareli and says, Kvod Harav, thank you so much for coming to the Brit Milah. We really appreciate it. And he says the story himself. He says, after I said this, I thought the rabbi would be happy. But I see his face changed, became mamash white. And he looks at me, he says, no, don't think that. I didn't come because of the Brit Milah. I woke up late. That's why I'm here. I didn't come here because of the Brit Milah. I came because I woke up late. That's why I'm at this minyan. Why? Sounds like a nice thing. Why don't you just tell him? He thinks that you came for the Brit Milah. What do you care? No, says the Torah. That's gnevadat. That's stealing his mind. That's making him think that you did something for him which you didn't. That is theft. That is stealing his mind. And Rav Karelitz simply could not stand it. He had to tell him. And if that wasn't enough, every time somebody came by to say Shabbat Shalom to the rabbi, he said to them, Shabbat Shalom, but I didn't come here because of the Brit Milah. I came because I slept too much. I overslept, so I came late. That's why I came to the minyan. I don't know how many people were at this minyan, but he made sure that whoever came up to him, he let them know that this the real reason of why he's there. Now, this is embarrassing. I mean, the rabbi is late, oversleeps, something you never want to hear about. Usually, the rabbis are the first ones there, last ones there, or the first ones with an excuse of why they shouldn't be there. Why would he tell him that he overslept? Because the truth is much more important than his honor. The truth is much more important than the rabbi's honor. So, we see here that when people are looking for someone to guide them, the Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Bet, 17b, says that the person that teaches you has to have the traits of an angel. Now, the average person thinks that, traits of an angel, maybe makes miracles, maybe flies in the air, he's going to start looking for rabbis with wings. No, that's not what we're talking about. The traits of the angels are traits where they don't have their own personal opinion ruining the truth. The first trait that you have to look at from anyone you're going to learn from is that their mouth is clean. Their mouth is clean from foul language. Their mouth is clean from lies and distortions of the truth in any way, shape, or form. Needless to say, distortions of the Torah. Now, the Gemara in Masechet Chulin talks about different business dealings. Many times, Jews think that honesty is reserved for the Jews, but with the Goyim, meaning the other nations, this is the term that we use for the other nations according to the Torah. Even the Jews are called Goyim. We're a nation, but we are the nation of Jews. The rest of the nations are the nations. And the Goyim think that perhaps the Jews are taking advantage of us, not taking advantage of us. And of course, a lot of people that are anti-Semitic have a lot of nasty things to say. Unfortunately, they did find some dishonest Jews that cheated them, and there's no question about that. But one common denominator about all of those dishonest Jews is that they were not practicing Judaism when they were dishonest. They were going against Judaism. They were going against the Torah. The problem is that we can't fix the mindset of the Goyim. We do have to fix the mindset of the Jews, to think that the just and honesty and integrity is reserved for the Jews, but with the Goyim you can cheat them. The Gemara in Masechet Chulin says otherwise, where it says if somebody sells meat. And he has a non-Jewish, a goy customer who orders a piece of meat. Not because the non-Jew wants to eat kosher food because all of a sudden he's in the process of conversion. No, he's a non-Jew, but he wants this piece of meat from you. And the Gemara says, can he give him the leg without taking out the gida nasheh, the part from the cow that the Jews are forbidden from eating? Can he just leave it there? The Gemara says, the Mishnah prohibits sending a cut-up thigh to an idolater without removing the gida nasheh. Not because we're concerned that maybe a Jew is going to buy from him and assume that the gida nasheh is removed. Rather because the Jew is stealing the goy's mind. He's misleading the idolater, which is prohibited. As Shmuel said, it's forbidden to steal the minds of people, including the mind of an idolater. Here the Gemara, Masechet Chulin, page 94a, says an answer to anyone out there that thinks that you're allowed to steal or cheat or mislead non-Jews because they're non-Jews. The Talmud Bavli gives you the law that the Shulchan Aruch paskins la'alacha, the Rambam paskins la'alacha. Across the board, everybody agrees. There is no second opinion. If the non-Jew makes a mistake on his own, some Chachamim say you're allowed to benefit from it. But if you caused them to make a mistake, certainly there's no benefit whatsoever that you can take advantage of that. Absolutely, you have to return what you stole, what you took. You cannot take advantage of him. But what about something that seems irrelevant? I mean, the guy ordered a giant leg, and he eats non-kosher. He happens to order the food for me, the meat for me today. It doesn't matter. He's a non-Jew. He could eat the leg, he could eat the arm, he could eat the head, he could eat whatever he wants. He could eat a pig, he could eat horses. Just don't eat him alive. So why should I go through the trouble of taking out the gida nasheh, which is very difficult, so difficult that today most places do not take it out. They simply don't eat that part of the meat. Literally, a quarter of the cow is not used by the Jews. Because it's so difficult, it requires a certain skill. So, this sciatic nerve, to take it out, why? Just give him the whole thing, he can eat it. The Gemara says absolutely not. Why? You're stealing his mind. You're misleading him. How am I misleading him? Because even though the goy doesn't eat kosher food and he's not trying to convert, still he buys food from you. And therefore he could assume justly that the Jews don't eat this part, this nerve, this gida nasheh. And therefore he could assume that you took it out. Where even though it doesn't affect him religiously, it doesn't affect the servitude of God, still, he's buying something from you. You have to give him what you give the rest of the Jews. You cannot take advantage of him even on something that's not really affecting him. You still can't take advantage of it. Needless to say, if you mislead him in things that are much worse than that, where you tell him that this is a good deal, but in reality you're cheating him. You're telling him that this loan is going to help him when you know it's a predatory loan, and other things that are forbidden. This is called gnevat dat, stealing of the mind. And the Jews are forbidden from doing it. Now, if you have anyone that's presenting themselves as a religious leader, telling you it's okay to lie to people, you already have one too many red flags to know that this person is someone you have to simply never listen to. You cannot listen to anybody that says it's okay to lie to people, it's okay to cheat people, like they do in Islam, like they do in Christianity. Where Christianity, according to their leaders in the New Testament, in the church, they tell them, listen, you can pretend to be a Jew. in order to fool the Jews to becoming friends with you, and then you can convince them to come to the idolatry of the New Testament. This is part of their doctrine, where Paul says to the Jews, I'm a Jew, to the Gentiles, I'm a Gentile, meaning in so many words, you could flip faces, do whatever you want. In Islam, they outright are proud of the law that tells them they're allowed to lie. In Judaism, there is no room for lies. In fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates lies so much that even when Navot was, the spirit of Navot, was looking to lie on behalf of God, God says, get out of my face. At the time of the Sanhedrin, the stories of today were the same. There was one time a non-Jew, they called him an Aramean. But in those days, it's not like today where people have different looks that are quite different from each other. In those days, people looked the same. They wore the same similar clothes and so on. And this guy, for all intents and purposes, looked Jewish, but he was not Jewish. Why would he pretend to be Jewish? He wasn't trying to convert the Jews. Unlike the missionaries today, he wasn't trying to convert the Jews. What was he doing? He was looking for free food. So what did he do? He would go to the Bet HaMikdash, and they're doing korbanot over there. They're doing sacrifice over there, and sometimes they need more people because they have to eat the korban. Some of the korbanot you have that night, you have to eat it, korban Pesach. Other korbanot you have the entire night, you have to finish it before morning. One korban you have to finish it within 2 days. But the point is, you have to finish. You can't waste, because whatever is left, you cannot eat anymore. You have to burn it. So sometimes it's an opportunity to give to other people. So this guy goes to the Bet HaMikdash looking for free food. And he's getting every time. And he's doing it for so long that everybody thinks he's Jewish already. And he's laughing. He's having a good time. One time, he sees a rabbi. Rabbi's proud of his Judaism. He wants to, bust the rabbi's chops. He says, hey, Rabbi, you guys say you just gave a lecture to these people. In those days, they sometimes would give lectures, shiurim, outside. He just gave a whole lecture about how the sacrifices, the korbanot, they are important, they're holy. But you said something about how someone that's not circumcised can have the korban. I have it all the time. Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera was that rabbi. He was one of the Gedolei Ador. The old man understood this message was from Shamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving him a gift. There's something wrong with this guy. But if I tell him, hey, don't do it, you're bad, you're this, the guy, he simply not going to listen to him. Now, to go send a WhatsApp message, an email, can't do it in those days. What does he do? He deals with the fool through his foolishness, like Shlomo HaMelech says. And he says to the fool, and he says to him, that's probably because they don't give you the tail, the fat tail. They don't give it to you. So this guy says, what? What tail? What are you talking about? Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera says to him, the fat tail. They give you the fat tail ever? He says, no, they didn't give me the fat tail. He says, okay, that's why. Do they know? I mean, if you get the fat tail, then maybe you could say something. And the guy says, oh, okay, fine, no problem. Next time, I'm getting the fat tail. Shortly later, he goes to the Bet HaMikdash. Gets to the Bet HaMikdash. The Kohanim are doing their job. And he says to them, hey, guys, listen, don't cheat me anymore. Today, I want the fat tail. The Kohanim look at him and say, whoa, what? What'd you say? The fat tail, don't cheat. You, every time I come here, you always shortchange me. I don't know, you're racist or something. Listen, I want the fat tail today. All right? Enough. I've been here already a bunch of times. No fat tail, not even once. The Kohanim say to him, the fat tail doesn't get eaten. The fat tail is part of the sacrifice that gets burned. Who told you that? You're supposed to get a fat tail. He says, the rabbi. Big rabbi. He goes, what was his name? He says, he was Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. Immediately the Kohanim's face turned white. Whoa! Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said to this guy to eat the fat tail. Of course the rabbi is Gdol Ador, he's the biggest rabbi of the generation. Of course he knows nobody eats the tail. So what is the rabbi telling us here? Obviously there's something here. The rabbi didn't say this for no reason. Think. That's Siyata Dishmaya. I said, okay, we got to investigate this guy. After asking him a few more questions, they confirmed he's a non-Jew. And a non-Jew that violated the Torah by stealing the Korban, death penalty. They killed him. He got a death penalty. At the time of the Sanhedrin had power. When the Sanhedrin lost the power, the ability to kill, then they, because the governments of the non-Jews were ruling, they disbanded. Shortly after eliminating the death penalty by moving out of the Yerushalayim. But the point being is that at the time they had power, the non-Jew that cheated, the non-Jew that lied, death penalty. Now, they sent Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera a message and said to him, Shalom Aleichem Rabbi, hello to you, our rabbi, where your net has reached from Netivot, where you are, all the way to Yerushalayim. This is Gemara Masechet Psachim at the beginning of the Masechet 3b. So here we see that lies are something we've dealt with. Missionaries, people pretending to be one thing and not being another. But needless to say, the same Gemara gives us other examples of things we have to be careful of, because sometimes people ask questions, should I listen to this guy? Should I listen to that guy? And I don't have the time nor the interest to follow every single person and know what everybody does, and that's why I say to you, listen to whoever speaks the truth. Now, sometimes someone can be a good speaker, but a speaker of lies. So how much does the Torah hate lies or anything that's simply unclean, that's even like a similarity to something that's dirty or something that's a lie? I'll show you. There were a couple of students that were sitting in front of Rav. Rav was, some say, was actually a Tana. It was at the line where the Amoraim started and the Tanaim ended. Some say he was a Tana. And he was also the Rabbi Abba that's mentioned in the Zohar Kadosh. So Rav had a couple of students in front of him that just finished learning Torah, long session. One of them said, wow, I'm so tired. It's like a pig right now. The other one said, wow, I'm so tired. Like a calf. Like a tired calf, tired kid. Rav heard this, and he didn't speak to the first one anymore. Why? Why is that dirty word coming out of your mouth? Pig? You're tired like a pig? A non-kosher animal? Yes. That is inappropriate. Now, in today's world, people say much worse than that. But here we see how speech was something that you had to be careful with. Another example the Gemara brings, that a couple of students were sitting in front of a Hillel. Hillel is a ken, one of the Zugot. It was Shammai and Hillel. One of those students was Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the rabbi of Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkinos, who was the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva, who was the rabbi of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Meir, who were the rabbis of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who wrote the Mishnah. So Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of those students. And he said, we must harvest grapes with utensils that are in a state of Tara, yet a person needs not to harvest olives with utensils in a state of Tara. The other student said, we must harvest grapes with utensils of Tara, and the olives with utensils that are in a state of Tum'ah. Meaning, in so many words, the language of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was cleaner. How? He says the utensils that are pure are ta'ol. The utensils that are impure are in a state of impurity. They're not pure. The other student says, oh, they're tameh. They're tameh. Hillel says, that one word is all I need to know. Because he chose to be cleaner on that one word, he's going to be a big rabbi. He's going to be a big rabbi. He's going to render decisions for Am Yisrael. And that's exactly what happened. Another example was that there were 3 Kohanim at the time of the Beit HaMikdash and received their lechem apanim. You know, they had the bread, and this bread was a extraordinary miracle with it every week, where the bread, all the loaves would stay in these special units that held the bread from one week to the other. Nobody would touch them. And then at the end of that week, when they would replace it, they would take the ones that were there for a week and eat them, and then replace them with new ones. The ones that they would take were still hot, just like they came out of the oven. For a whole week, they stayed hot. So when the Kohanim got them, 3 Kohanim got them. The Gemara says each one had to get a relatively small piece because there's a lot of Kohanim. And one guy said, the one I got, piece that I got, is a piece of a bean. Another one said, mine is like an olive, meaning it was small. And the third guy says, mine is like the tail of a lizard. Everybody, whoa, what did you say? Tail of a lizard? Where did you come up with that? It's like, what? You said olive, you said bean, I said tail of a lizard. What's the big deal? They investigated him. And they found out he's a non-kosher Kohen. Non-kosher Kohen. The Gemara says, wait a minute, but isn't it true that if you already know that somebody's a Kohen, you don't really need to investigate him? It says he did it to himself when he used impure language. Compared the lechem apanim to a reptile, non-kosher animal? Something's wrong here. They found out he's a non-kosher Kohen. His father married a woman he's not allowed to marry. Like a woman that was divorced. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorced, or a zonah, which is a woman that was promiscuous before she got married. And he married her anyway. He fooled the rabbis, but he didn't fool Hashem. That kid is a halal. He's not a kosher Kohen. So we see from here multiple examples of how particular our Torah is about staying away from lies, and how it damages us if we don't pay attention to it. The Chachamim wanted to make sure that each and every single one of us have the truth available to us on a silver platter. Hence the reason why they wrote these books. And there's no religion in the world. And in fact, even if you combine all of the religions of the world, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, the 80,000 different religions and sects that they have in India alone, combine all of them and all of their books, they do not equal even a number that's remotely close to the number of books that the Jewish people have. Not even close. And in fact, and that's just the ones that we know about, many, many books were lost over the years. Either through simply the destruction of the non-Jews, destroying the Beit HaMikdash, the first one, the second one, the pogroms, the inquisitions, or simply the fact that they were burned or lost. In fact, when a person really thinks about it, any book that we have today, whether it's the Talmud, or it's the Yad Chazakah of the Rambam, or it's the anything that we have from the previous generations, especially the stuff from before printing, became standard in the world, any of those books are a miracle of their own. Because if you think about it, now the Baruch Hashem, we've already been printing books for our organization, Rabbi Ephraim's books, my books, and each time we print 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 copies. I thought about this. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm printing right now 50,000 copies of these two books. And I'm hoping that each one of these books is going to arrive at the hands of somebody that's going to not only open it, but read it, and hopefully follow what it says and do tshuva and get closer to Hashem. Maybe even give it to somebody else after he finishes, and perhaps we'll even get two. But the reality is that if you have 50,000 books, and even if you got one person to do tshuva, that's already a big thing. But of course, we're not doing it just for one person. We're hoping all 50,000 get people to do tshuva, and perhaps many more. But that's when you have that many copies. The reality is that after you've distributed these 50,000 copies, if we fast forward 5, 10, 20 years, and you want to retract, where are these 50,000 copies? You're lucky if you know where 500 of them are. If you fast forward 50, 100 years, you're lucky if you know where one is. Why? Because unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself wants it to be there, the chances are it's simply not going to be. And this is one of the places where we see the verse in the Torah where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the truth will rise up from the ground. What does it mean, the truth will rise up from the ground? Liars have always been there. At the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, we had Korach, Datan, Aviram, all the followers of Korach. All of them were so-called religious leaders that were put into power by Moshe himself. They became rabbis and leaders of Am Yisrael because Moshe picked them, meaning he did them the big favor, the big kindness. What did they do in return? They went against Moshe Rabbeinu because each one wanted the position. Their lies eventually destroyed them. Hashem had all of them killed. The ground swallowed them, a plague destroyed them. And until this day, they're all in Gehenom, the Gemara says, screaming, Moshe emet v'torato emet, and we are liars. Moshe is truth, his Torah is truth, and we are liars. If you fast forward, at the time of the Greeks, we had a bunch of Jews abandoning Judaism and pretending like to be Greek is better. And their idolatry, and their homosexuality, and their immorality is better. And they were called mityavnim, Jews that became Greeks. And they were trying to recruit and missionize other Jews to do the same thing, as we know from the story of Chanukah. Eventually, all of their existence was annihilated from the world. Either they did tshuva and joined the Jews again, or they were killed. The same happened with the students of Antigonos, Ish Socho. He was one of the Zugot, the original Zugot, who were the beginning of, after the prophets, there were the sages that were pairs, Shmaya and Avtalion. And Antigonos Ish Socho was one of them, was one of the leaders. He had two students that did not like the Torah at face value and instead wanted to reinterpret the Torah. Sort of like what people do today where they say different things that no sage has ever said before. Things to make the Torah more marketable to their audience, even though it goes against the Torah. So they wanted to preach to people that God doesn't punish and there's really no reward and punishment. Everything is good. And obviously they saw that people are not buying it. So they started manipulating different parts of the truth in order to get people on board before they give them the complete lie. They were called the Sadducees and the Sadducees. We had those. We had those. Of course, if we fast forward, we had people that go against the sages. The times of the Gemara, 1600 years ago, 1500 years ago, all types of evil people that distorted the Torah for their benefit. And they're gone. The Enlightenment movement, the reformers, for the last couple of hundred years have worked very hard to distort the Torah and change it. But today it's very clear to see the difference between a real Orthodox Jew and one of these reformers that more times than not is not even Jewish at all. And the founders of the Reform movement, whether it's Mendelssohn or Geiger or the others that are involved in it, their work and their words are gone. Nobody cares about what they said and when they said it. The only time they're mentioned is when it's a time of rebuke, as don't do what they did. And the truth is that if you look throughout all of the last few thousand years, you'll find many, many other false messiahs and falsianity, they call Christianity, and the people that preached all forms of idolatry and tried to missionize against the Jewish people, missionize from the Jewish people to them. You'll find many types of examples of falsehood. You'll find Shabtai Tzvi, Shem Reshaim Yerkav, or Yaakov Frank, his Talmid, Shem Reshaim Yerkav. You're going to find many of them. In fact, there's a book called False Messiahs. Of course, at the head is Yeshua Notzri, Imach Shemo V'zichro, Jesus of Nazareth. But you have many other false messiahs, false preachers. But interestingly enough, those were the ones that had a certain following. But generally speaking, you're not going to find any of their teachings, with the exception of Yeshua Notzri, where he never really taught anything. It's just people wrote about him. Everyone else, no one can find their books, their writings, their thoughts. And all of the other heretics throughout all of the generations, you're not going to find a book of Sadducees being sold at Barnes and Noble. You're not going to find a book about the Mityavnim and their theory of whatever they want to think at some Jewish library. All of the people that pretended to be the better version of Jews, from Reform and Conservative, you're not going to find anything that's in any real Jewish library. Maybe you'll find it on eBay from some collector that's really just trying to take out the trash, but he needs the money too. So he figures, let me sell the trash for somebody that wants to buy it. One of the things we see is that the words of the liars, they don't last. They die with the liar. But yet, the word of the truth, like the verse says, will rise from the ground. Meaning that you wrote a book 900 years ago. You called it Yad HaChazakah, Mishneh Torah, the Rambam. You hand wrote it. No printing presses. 14 volumes handwritten. How many volumes, how many sets can you possibly write? I mean, even if he spent all day and all night writing them, how many can you possibly write? And the Rambam himself says that he didn't even have enough time to swallow his saliva. He was so busy. Being the doctor for the king, being a leader for the Jewish people, he barely had any time. It's a miracle that he was even able to write it in the first place. Meaning that whenever he wrote it, there were only a few sets distributed, produced. The same thing with the commentary by Rashi. Needless to say, the Gemara, the Talmud, the Yerushalmi, the Bavli, all of these writings from the Rishonim, from these great sages from a couple of thousand years ago, even at their heyday, when they were produced, when the sage himself is alive, to sell it, to tell you about it, to quote you while he's reading it himself from the book, how many copies do you have? 10? 100? Let's say even 500. 500 sets of the Talmud. 500 sets of Bavli, 500 sets of Yerushalmi. 60 Masechtot times 500 is an enormous amount of books, but that's it. The Rambam, he didn't have printing presses. How many sets is he going to write? 100? 200? 500 sets. Rashi, how many books can he write? Even when his Talmidim, even when his daughters helped him. How many books can he write? A commentary on everything? The entire Tanakh? How many? A few hundred? 1,000? But yet, their words and all of the sages that followed, that had the words of truth, the words of God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ensured that their Torah, word for word, is preserved until this day, as if it was just printed and published yesterday. The liars, even from 100 years ago, you couldn't find their book if you looked under the ground. This is one of the ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu assures us, not only the divinity of His Torah, but the lies are only temporary. This does not mean that we can simply ignore them and act like it's His job to deal with. But the point being is to show us that if we're going to look at sources, if we're going to look for truth, we have to look for the truth that has survived the test of time, that has survived the test of anti-Semitism, survived the test of heresy, time and time again, and more than anything else, survived the test of the sages themselves, who did not act shy for a moment if anybody wrote something that's not 100% truth. If somebody still had his work not only reviewed by other sages during his time, but times after that, and everyone is testifying this is the truth, generation after generation, generation after generation, this is not a united opinion because they all like him. This is simply HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the stamp on this. This is the truth, and you will see it. The liars, they're only going to fool the people of their generation and anyone that wants to be fooled. So now, David HaMelech says, Dover shkarim lo yichol leneged enai. Someone that says lies, I don't even want to see him, Hashem says. The Gemara in Masechet Chagiga uses this verse to teach us of how a liar thinks and how an honest person thinks. On one end, we have Rabbi Akiva, the ultimate truth. On the other end, we have Elisha Acher, the liar. Both of them went up to the Pardes, along with two other sages. 4 sages, the Gemara in Masechet Chagiga says, 4 sages went up to the Pardes, meaning their neshama left their body, they went up to Shamayim. They were allowed to see certain things. One died. He saw the Shekhinah, he loved it too much, he couldn't leave. He let his neshama go, he died. Another one went crazy. Couldn't deal with all of this Kedusha, was too much for him, he went crazy. Third one was Elisha Acher, became a heretic, went against the Torah. And the fourth one, Rabbi Akiva, grew as a result of it, even accumulated more Kedusha as a result. The last two are the ones we're going to delve into. What's the difference between them? The practical difference is what we need to know. Rabbi Akiva, who went up to the Pardes, reported to people if you're going to go to the Pardes, if you're going to elevate yourself, sanctify yourself, and eventually get to a point where one day you merit to go up there, you're going to see certain things, and I'll give you a secret because I saw it. You're going to see stones that look like water. But when you see those stones, don't say, water, water, mine. Don't say that. Why? They'll throw you out. Why? It's a lie. It's not mine. It's not water. That's how strict the truth is in the real world. A mistake is unacceptable. Why? It's the world of truth. It looks like water, but it's not water. You call it water? Out of here. You don't deserve to be up here. That was Rabbi Akiva. The things that we think about usually don't take stuff like that into account. Because we figure, okay, so you made a mistake. What's the big deal? He called the lechem apanim lizard's tail. What's the big deal? It's a big deal. Why? It's not true. It's not true. The Elisha Acher, on the other hand, he said otherwise. The Gemara in Masechet Chagigah says, Elisha Acher says, the reason why I'm not keeping mitzvot anymore, it's really because when I was still in my mommy's belly, it was Yom Kippur, and my mom had a desire to eat on Yom Kippur. And she went and she smelled something, and it smelled good, and it caused her to want to eat. And even though the rabbis tried to whisper in her ear, it's Yom Kippur, that didn't work. She went and she ate the first thing she smelled, and it ended up being the food of idol worshippers. So that food of idol worshippers, it went into me. I was a baby in the belly. So that's the reason why there's something wrong. In so many words, he's blaming his wicked behavior of going with prostitutes, of desecrating Shabbat, of going against Hashem on what? On his mommy. And by the way, if that's not enough, Elisha Acher says, you know that on my Brit Milah, the sages of that generation came, and they were learning Torah. And all of a sudden, because it was so holy, there was like a spiritual fire around them. And my father, his name was Avuyah. He saw this. He says, what are you going to burn my house? And he said to him, no worries. This is holy fire that's made from the Kedusha of learning Torah. And my father says, if that's the fire it makes, I'll have my son learn Torah. So my father dedicated this whole party in my life to go learn Torah, but it really wasn't because he wanted me to learn Torah. It's because he wanted honor. He wanted to have a son that has this holy fire, and everyone kisses his hand and donates to him and says he's great. So really, it's my father's fault. It's really my father's fault. And if that's not enough, because the Gemara says in Masechet Nida, there's 3 partners in each person: the mother, the father, and God. So he has to blame. He already blamed his mother. She ate non-kosher while he was on Yom Kippur. His father, because the Brit Milah wasn't 100% for heaven. But he has to blame Hashem too. He says, by the way, one time I thought maybe I shouldn't do tshuva, and I heard a bat kol, I heard a heavenly voice. Everyone can do tshuva except Elisha. So even God doesn't want me. So you see, I'm going the right way. This is a liar living a lie. By simply blaming everyone but himself for his own lies. Everyone but himself for his own lies. Unfortunately, the lies don't only affect the person that's lying. Typically, they affect other people. Typically, they affect other people and cause a lot of harm. the series that we're starting called Returning to HaShem, where we're interviewing some students that want to tell their story about doing tshuva, about transforming their life as a result of watching our lectures. And we had, Baruch Hashem, many people contact us where they want to be part of it. But some people, we had to tell them, we're sorry, but we can't do it. We can't take you as a candidate. And of course, each time we'd explain whenever we could explain. And most of the times it went okay. But of course, there was a couple of times where, a person will get offended. Why not? What's this? What's that? Now, many times you see other organizations look for stories. Look to interview people from the public that can speak well of them and make it a highlight on their websites for 50 years. One little comment the guy made becomes the banner for the website for 10, 20 years. The guy hasn't been using the website in 10 years, but his comment is still influencing people. A guy just did tshuva a few weeks ago. They take a picture of him and they put him on the website as if this is an everyday thing. And you see many times people are chasing ratings. They're chasing, simply the ratings of people, the acceptability of the public. And I don't have to teach you or tell you guys about this is something that's obviously the way that the media works. Where if somebody is very, very popular, they let him do whatever he wants. But the second that he could hurt the pockets of the bosses, the acceptability of the bosses, anything, they throw him out. Recently, they threw out some guy that apparently was a speaker of truth, or at least for part of his career he spoke the truth, or at least he says he spoke the truth, but needless to say, they fired him. Why? According to them, he spoke too much truth. And this has been a recurring thing. Anyone that speaks the truth is fired. Anyone that says things that get people to buy is hired. But what if he's getting them to buy lies? No problem. Sometimes even better. What if the lies are exposed? So we just lie something else. And we see of how the media and the world in general has become so accustomed to lies, where a few years ago we were all like laughing at, fake news, fake news, fake news. Now it's not even funny anymore because no one even knows if real news exists anymore. True news? That's a thing of the past. If it ever existed at all. People have become acclimated to falsehood. So much so that if they hear the truth, they don't really know what to do with it. And if this only affected the secular world, media, Hollywood, it really wouldn't be a thing for us to discuss. But unfortunately, this is a thing that has infected the Jewish world. No less, where you see different organizations highlighting people the second they can get anything out of it. And therefore, when people contact me and say, listen, I want to tell my story, if they don't meet the requirement, I tell them, I'm sorry, not yet, perhaps maybe the next season, or the season after, or never. But certainly not now. And people are baffled by it. Because everybody else would die we even pay them to give an interview. Why aren't you chasing ratings? Everyone else says things that everybody likes. You've been saying a decade full of things that perhaps only people that like the truth like, but all the falsehoods are not buying into it. As I've said once and I'll say again many times, we're not looking for ratings. Because ratings are destroying Judaism. You see, if somebody is brand new to doing tshuva, they just started a few months ago. They started 6 months ago. They started even a year ago. You have to be very careful before you give them the spotlight. Especially if they're a very charismatic person. Because sometimes people, they get really excited in the beginning, and when they connect that excitement to this new thing that they're doing, they assume that it's always going to be this way. So the minute that it stops and people pretty much move on, okay, great, you did tshuva, you used to be Mechalel Shabbat, and now you're not. Good for you. The end. What do you mean? But my story is so exciting. Yeah, but it's like last year, man. It's like, we're finished. We heard your story. It's done. Is there anything new that happened in the story? Yeah, I kept Shabbos this week too. Yeah, was there like a fire? I don't know, a terrorist came? Something happened? No, it was just a good Shabbos. Me and my wife were having a good time with the kids. Oh. So? That's how everybody does that. What? Shouldn't I make a lecture about it? No. That you're doing what you're supposed to do. And sometimes when people are so new, they don't know how to handle that. They want the spotlight again. They did tshuva. Somebody paid them attention, wrote a story about them, put them on a video, anything, and they miss it. So what do? Stupid things. They start making videos themselves. They start writing stuff themselves without asking for any rabbinical supervision, without considering any rabbinical supervision, without considering the difference between lies or truth. And little by little, they do dumber and dumber things. And when those dumb things do not get the spotlight that they were hoping they were going to get again, they do even worse. And many times they return to the evil of their past. This is most common in people that used to be missionaries, people that used to be part of Christianity, where initially when a Christian or someone that practiced Christianity, especially if he's Jewish and he was practicing Christianity and then he went back to Judaism, you'll find it that anyone that has any type of video outlet or article, any type of media out there, immediately chases these people like as if they're like, gold on the streets. Oh, tell us your story. How did you do it? How did you leave the church and return back home in the last week? Like, the story is not even old enough to complete a month, and everybody wants to talk to this guy. Completely disregarding the teachers of the sages that tell us to be careful. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says people that were really missionaries, most of the time they die young if they do tshuva. Because their neshama that was glued to idolatry and causing people to sin, now does tshuva. It's a major conflict. It's better for them to die. This is obviously not the case always, but again, see, something that we see. And sometimes people approach me and they ask me if I want to do all types of interviews with different people that have their YouTube channels or their magazines or whatever other organizations that they have. And for the last several years now, I think it's been at least 5 years, I've pretty much said no to everything. And one of the main reasons is this. I don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. And I don't know you well enough to trust that it's going to be good. Now, this is not to say that I think everybody's wicked, chas v'shalom. But simply put, I know that my audience, the people that call me their rabbi, teacher, or whatever they call me, they know that I do everything in my power to say only the truth. And therefore, if I'm connected to anything, they're going to say, oh, whatever he connected to, that must be the truth. And I don't want that responsibility unless I know that for a fact. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem saved me several times. A few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, some guy from England contacted me. He said he had a well-known, media outlet for Jewish people, and he wanted to interview me, ask me all types of questions. And after I considered it, I knew who he was and his channel. I told him, I'm sorry, this is not for me. I can't do it at this time. Literally not 24 hours passed after I said no, did he highlight one of the biggest heretics in the world that we spoke against several times. Meaning that, he made a show out of him. In a positive way. Meaning the whole thing was a trap. Where he cares less about the truth. He wanted to have me. He knew that I'm not going to go on if I see this other con man on. He wanted to have me. And then immediately after having me, let's play devil's advocate and find out what this guy says. Which, by the way, is Manus Friedman, for those of you that haven't figured it out. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem saved me. I had, Baruch Hashem, several other times like this. Most recently, about a year ago, some guy came up to me and said, send me some messages, a guy that we work with in Israel, against the missionaries and so on. And he says, listen, there's this guy, he's a great guy. He was a, Israeli that fell for the missionaries. He was with them for 9 years. And after watching the videos, he discovered the truth. We really want to give him chizuk. Want to put him on the channel, have him teach about what he knows, all the falsehood, so people could get chizuk from it. And we wanted to know if the rabbi wants to interview and put him on your channel also. I said, no, I'm not interested. Not interested. Well, why not? He left idolatry. He's good. He believes everything. He's now doing everything. I said, okay, fine. He's good. Good. Chazaku Baruch that he does everything. Good for him that he does everything. But it's too early. When did he leave? 3 months ago? 6 months ago? It's too early. He's still a baby. How do I know what he's going to do tomorrow? Come on, Rabbi. You got to give people some credit. You got to give them some chizuk. Come on, Rabbi. A lot of people follow you. Maybe if he sees some people and people are going to follow him. I said, exactly. That's the point. I don't want that. I don't know who he is. I don't know if he's going to go back. No, he's speaking out against it now. Look at his channel. They started sending me all of his videos of how he's speaking against Christianity and how it's all false. I said, okay, good job. He's not going on my channel. Why? But look at this video and that video. I said, good. Let him go wherever you want him to go. He's not going on my channel. Why? I can't trust him. He's not my student. I don't know him well enough. I'm sorry. Can't do it. I wish they listened and some of the others listened. But this guy went on the media. They interviewed him on TV. Channel 7. They put him on all types of Torah channels. They interviewed him. They took pictures of him putting on tefillin. They said, the Jew that left Christianity, he's back home. And they made a whole big deal out of this guy. Now, I go back to my business. I don't have time to follow these things. But of course, these things follow me. One day, I only found out about this now, but it's actually been at least a couple of months. he decided he wants attention again. The attention died out. The Jewish world has had enough of him. He's not exactly so enticing to speak to or hear or anything. They got the story already. He was an idolater. He's now back to being Jewish again. Good for you. We read the story. We saw the video. The end. Apparently that's not enough. So what did he do? He made the Jews the biggest enemies. And now he's back to being a Christian missionary again. Worse than what he was before. Worse than what he was before. But this is after being exposed to many more people. That if they follow him and if they look up and they see, wait a minute, this guy was a missionary. Then he became a religious Jew. And now he's back to missionary. So which one is right? So maybe where he is, maybe that. The damage that this would cause, Ribono shel Olam, how much damage this would cause. A couple of months ago when I spoke out against, without mentioning names, some people that are very nice, fine people, mean well, are doing bad things according to what we know, what we were taught in history itself, track record. I've seen this time and time again. 8 years ago, I had a guy that was a dedicated student out in Texas. He used to talk to me on a regular basis. And one day he decided he's going to move to a community, and he went to a community. And he said he's going to, in the process of conversion, he wanted to convert. And he wants to do as much as possible to help the Jewish world, to help the Torah world. And he got involved with some organization out there in Texas. And one day he tells me, yeah, I'm doing great with them. I'm helping them with the cameras. I'm helping them with this. I'm helping them with that. And now I'm also doing shiurim. I almost had a heart attack. I said, well, excuse me? What? What do you mean you do shiurim? He goes, yeah, I'm doing shiurim. I'm giving shiurim like you, Rabbi. Now, I didn't want to scare him. I said, can you send me a clip? Can you send me like a clip, a link of these shiurim that you're giving? And he sent it to me. Nice guy. But you're not allowed to learn from a non-Jew if you're Jewish. Especially when that non-Jew is presenting as if he's Jewish. He had a kippah as big as mine. He had a little beard. Looked Jewish. Not that Jews have a look, but he looked Jewish. To the audience, there's no difference. This is a problem. I told the people it's a problem. Nobody listened to me. Wasn't 6 months later, he abandoned his ways and went back to the old ways. Hopefully it didn't damage as much as this other guy did. But needless to say, anybody that followed him, anybody that listened to him, could easily be confused by this. A guy that's teaching Torah goes back to everything that's not Torah? How could this help anybody? There's some people that are going through the conversion process. And they want to tell the world about their conversion process, not when it's over, but while it's happening. Now, although they mean well, this is the wrong thing to do. Number one, there's already enough ayin hara on anybody that's trying to convert. There's already enough kitrug from Shamayim on anyone that's trying to convert. The Satan will not allow you to convert without problems. By you highlighting yourself, especially in the media, you're literally shooting yourself in both feet, not one. Why? Real converts are not easy to come by. If you're seeing the world of Jews welcome you with two open arms and nothing is going wrong, something is wrong. But they don't realize it. No one wants to listen. So they have a channel, they want to talk about their conversion process. And the so-called rabbinical organizations and rabbis and whoever, Torah organizations that are looking for ratings, they're looking to please the public, they're looking for anybody that's going to pique the public's interest. So now you're going to start seeing, oh, look at this nice couple. They're in the process of converting. They already look Jewish. Tell us about your life. And you see these people literally appearing in every Jewish channel. You're already starting to think, wait a minute, are they Jewish? Are they converting? Are they in the process of converting? We're not sure. Okay, let's subscribe. Maybe we'll donate. Maybe we'll this. Maybe we'll that. And guess what? That's not the right way. Why? What if they don't convert? What if they end up being missionaries? What if they end up simply abandoning everything? You're supporting them, publicizing them, highlighting them, putting them on a pedestal as if they've already completed the mission. They're still in stage 1 and 2. And people don't want to listen. They don't realize this is a problem in the making. But because people are chasing ratings and they're looking for anything that's going to bring them any type of popularity, they're doing it. Now, heaven forbid if the people are darker complexion, what we call African Americans. Why? If you're African American and there's a video of you, everyone's going to highlight you. Why? Everyone wants to pretend like they like the black people. Why do you need to pretend? They're perfectly fine people. Why do you need to highlight them? Highlight everybody. If you're already going to highlight. If you're already going to highlight everybody. No. One person they've interviewed in 15 years, it's these people. Why? Because they want to make sure that the media knows that Jews are not against the black people. Like, what does this have to do with Torah? In Judaism, there is no color. We don't care if you're black, you're burgundy, you're pink. It doesn't make a difference. You're Jewish, the end. That's it. It doesn't make a difference. You made it make a difference. When you highlighted this guy or this girl or this couple because they're black, you became racist. You didn't become someone that's socially accepting. Because if every day we saw you're highlighting everybody, you're interviewing everybody, no problem. But if you made it a big deal that they happen to be black, then you're really racist. And you're saying, oh, no, but see, we're Why do you even have to make those statements? Why do you have to qualify? You know why? Because you're looking for ratings. People are looking for ratings. They're dying for ratings. They're dying for everyone to like them. Who is my larger audience? Oh, maybe we can reach the Asian audience by interviewing an Asian. Maybe we could interview the black audience. And enough. What is this? Television or is this Torah? It's all lies. It's all lies, Rabotai. And the lies literally have no limit. A person has to know that David HaMelech cried about lies literally more than anything else. He hated lies. Was David HaMelech racist? No. Was David HaMelech sexist? No. Was David HaMelech one of these rainbow people that give themselves an acronym that you can't even see or else they shut you down? No. David HaMelech was a man of truth, man of holiness. 22 times in Tehillim, David HaMelech cries about lies. The word sheker appears in Tehillim 22 times. David HaMelech was literally sick of lies, sick of them, sick, because lies are like a poison if you want connection to God. If you're chasing ratings, you're a liar. If you're chasing popularity, you're a liar. If you're chasing anything but the truth, you're a liar. The best you can do, go into a cave like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, work on yourself, and when you're able to only speak the truth, come out. Because otherwise, whatever you teach, whatever you do, will die with you. If you want it, what you do, your work, your influence, your teachings, your wisdom, your life, to survive the test of time, it must be true. It must be true. Because if it's a lie, it will die. And you're going to say, yeah, but there's some lies like Christianity and Islam and all these other things that survive the test of time. Yes, the lies survive the test of time, meaning that's what we already know already. But if you want anything to be known as true, as part of the Holy Torah, it must be true from beginning to end. Now, the popular lie where we've discussed many times about how people are adapting the mentality of the wicked, Elisha Achel, that blamed the world except himself for all of the mistakes. This is the lie that people are saying where they're humanizing God. Either they're humanizing God in the name of Christianity or they're humanizing God in the name of Judaism. As a result of learning from Manis Friedman and his friends, Y.Y. Jacobson, his brother or his father, I'm not really sure which one he is, his student Yoel, and some of the guys from Or Sameach, all of these people that are preaching this God needs you thing, if you've noticed, they have yet to bring a single source from the Torah. The closest we got was one of the rabbis said, yes, there's many sources. You can look in the Ben Ish Chai, you can look at the Zohar, you can look at the Tanakh. What? That's like me saying, yeah, there are plenty of people. You could look in Arkansas, you could look in Tennessee, you could look at New York, the state, not the city. Like, what does that mean? Stating the Ben Ish Chai, it's like stating a world. Stating the Zohar is stating a world. What does that mean? In the world of Judaism, sources have a page number, have a siman, have a line, have words. But that was the closest we got to a source. Second closest, a video called You Want a Source? By the little pet that calls himself the #1 fan of Menace. He called the video, you want a source? I'll give you a source. 5, 10, 20 minutes of waste of life words. Source does not exist. Nothing. Why? He says the whole Torah is a source. Because it makes sense. Show me one sage throughout 3,334 years of Judaism that made such a statement, that the whole Torah is a source. That you don't need to bring a page number. You don't bring a chacham. You don't bring anything. No one. Even when he questions, he doesn't realize that he is burying himself a hole. Where he says to the master liar, Menace. So this is a Chabad type of teachings, right? No. Oh, so the source, with the source, there is no source. The minute you bring a source, he says, with complete confidence of this lie, the minute you bring a source in Judaism, it can be debated. And anything that's debatable, it's worth nothing. As if the way to make it true is to make it sourceless, which is literally the opposite of the foundation of the Torah. As we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Torah to Moshe. Moshe to Yoshua ben Nun, Yoshua ben Nun to the Skenim, to the elders to the prophets to the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. And they taught, this is the first Mishnah in Masechet Avot. No. But in the world of this imaginary Chassidut, if you have a source, it's worthless. Interestingly enough, instead of the leaders of Chabad, which is the Chassidut they claim to represent, rebuking them and telling them, stop destroying the Chassidut, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, all of them, all of the Rebbes of Chabad, for the 7 of them, each one of them brought endless sources. In the Tanya, every page has sources. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is Sichot full of sources. But now all of a sudden we don't need sources. Now all of a sudden this is sourceless truth for the first time since the beginning of time. Now we've brought sources. And I keep telling you that there's no end to the sources. Because to prove the truth is easy. They say God needs you. They say that the mitzvot, since He created the mitzvot, since He is the mitzvot according to them, and we need to do the mitzvot for Him, therefore He needs it. We've proven it time and time again, there's no such thing as God needing anything, but for the sake of continuing to give you more and more sources to add to the arsenal of sources we've provided thus far, we'll bring you another one. Midrash Rabbah, Parashat Vayikra, Parashat Dalet, Ot Bet. Midrash Vayikra, the Parasha of Vayikra, Leviticus, the fourth section, second Parasha, number 2. It says the following. It's talking about a verse that a person will sin unintentionally. For among all of the commandments of Hashem, what happens with him? So it says, in regards to this verse of the nefesh that will sin, there's a teaching about it. In essence, there's a teaching about someone that sins. What is this teaching? This verse is supportive of that which is stated in a different place by Shlomo HaMelech, Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 7, which says, all man's toil is for his mouth, yet the soul is never satisfied. That's what the verse says. So what is all of man's toil is for his mouth, yet the soul is never satisfied? Rav Shmuel Bar Ami says, the beginning of this verse may be interpreted to mean all that a man's accumulated over his lifetime in terms of mitzvot and good deeds is insufficient. Insufficient remuneration for the breath that leaves the man's mouth. In so many words, the sages say clearly, all of the Shabbat that you keep, all of the tefillin that you put on, all of the mikveh that you go to, all of the Torah that you learn, all of the kosher food that you eat, all of the tzedakah that you give, all of what you do is not enough to even pay for a single breath that you breathe, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you. This is not to say that your mitzvahs are worthless. Certainly they're worth something, but for you to get a reward in heaven, for you to have a good life, for you to, in essence, earn your right to exist in this world. But it's certainly not enough to justify a single breath that He gave you before you did any of it, and a single breath that you did even after you did all of it. Because all of it is for your benefit, not for Him. Then the Midrash says further, the latter part of this verse says, V'gam hanefesh lo titmaleh, that even the soul's extraction does not fill the hole. What does it mean? First, we learn that the soul is never satisfied. The soul is never satisfied. Why? Because all the toil that a person does in this world, all the mitzvot, all the chesed, everything, the soul says, listen, it's still not enough to justify my existence. Do more, do more. Why? I don't know when God's going to take it back. It's in reality, I'm still in debt. The rest of the verse, Shlomo HaMelech says, what about the soul when it leaves? The extraction of the soul? It says the soul's extraction does not fill the hole. What is this talking about? The Midrash elaborates. How is the extraction of the soul from the body at death? Rabbi Barachia and Rabbi Kartzifa say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, like ropes that exit a round hole. Rabbi Chanina says, like knotted rope that exits from a round hole. Shmuel says, like a thorn, moist and reversed, that exits from a round hole. In so many words, the chibut kever, when the soul leaves the body, it's painful. It's painful. So to sum it all up, we understand all the mitzvot that we do are for us. Everything we do is for us. God doesn't benefit a single thing from us. In fact, if we don't do good, our end begins with pain of chibut kever, of dying. Now, if someone wants to argue, yeah, but what about if he was a tzaddik? What about if he was a tzaddik? Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak says, all of that man accumulated over his lifetime in terms of mitzvot and good deeds serves to provide for his mouth, but not for his son's mouth and not for his daughter's mouth. Meaning, okay, so he was righteous. Okay, so he justified his existence. But who says he's justifying his kid's existence? Hashem gave you kids. Did you pay for it? He gave you a daughter, gave you a son, gave you multiple daughters and sons. Did you pay for it? Well, I didn't ask for it. That's what the heretics say. I didn't ask to be here. Here we see, Rabotai Karim, literally the words of the sages are shouting at our generation that's full of lies, telling you God needs you. Anyone that believes such a thing is not only going to end up in the worst possible place that they can't even imagine, but they're going to live a lie. And living a lie creates a lot of damage. Living a lie is one of the things that David HaMelech hated more than anything else, and he simply could not take it. Rav Moshe Levi, alav shalom, Rav Ephraim studied with his son. Rav Moshe Levi, he was a giant Gaon, died young, 40 years old. When he was still alive, Rav Ovadia Yosef, alav shalom, told him, you're going to continue after me. Meaning that he was such a Gaon, he was such a genius, so holy, that Rav Ovadia said, you're after me, you're unbelievable. Now, his son told a story about him, of what kind of man of truth he was. Because we see that the ones that their Torah survives, they're not just smart people, they're not just avid writers or good speakers. They have this midat emet. They have this trait of truth that a Kadosh Baruch Hu signs off that it will survive. The test of time, the test of heresy, the test of anything that could literally go into this world. Emet me'eretz tismach. The emet will come out from the world. Now, how do you see the truth without learning his books? His books are, Rabbi Moshe Levi's books are literally studied all over the world by Chachamim. Tested on them too. His son says, one time his father was giving a shiur. A lot of kids, a lot of people. At some point, while he's speaking, one of the guys there, young guys, raised his hand and asked the Rav a question. We had a understanding of one of the things that the Rav said is contrary to what he learned. And he brought up this sugya, this kashya. Moshe Levi stopped talking after listening to his question. He sat there, he thought, and imagine, you have hundreds and hundreds of bachurim in front of him waiting for the Rav to speak. That's why they're there. But Moshe Levi, he's there, he's sitting, and he's standing, he's thinking. His eyes closed, And he's thinking. 5 minutes like this. His son, that studied with Rabbi Efron, was there. After 5 minutes, his father says to the guy and to the audience, he's right. And he walks off the stage. If somebody does that today, it'll be a cover of the headlines. Cover of the headlines. Somebody asked a question that even the speaker couldn't answer, and he walked off the stage. What happened? What do you think he was going through? Maybe this, and all the conspiracies start. Now, of course, this is certainly shocking. This is a giant chacham. Young guy asks him a question. He says, you're right, and he stops the lecture, doesn't continue, and he leaves. His son says to his father, he's like, Abba, why? Why didn't you give him an answer? Moshe Levi says to him, I had at least 30 rebuttals to what he said. And most likely, he wouldn't have been able to deal with most of them, if any of them. But I knew, deep down, it's not true. It's not the emes. It's not emet. And therefore, I walked off. Because it's better to walk out and let anyone think what they want to think and make fun and mock and doubt and whatever. Let them think. And me stay with the emet. The second I knew that the rebuttals that I have are not 100% the emet, that I could say, this is 100%, I can't give him. I can't give it. Why? The second it's not 100%, it's 0. Now, if you didn't know and you made a mistake, it's one thing. But if you knowingly are preaching something you know is false, there's nothing in the world worse than you. There's nothing in the world worse than you. Where the Gemara in Masechet Chulin says, if you sold the meat to the guy as you sell it to everybody else, good. If you sold it and you didn't know that something's missing, it's not your fault. But if you know what he's asking, what he bought is different than what he thinks he's buying, you're cheating him, you're stealing his mind, you're worse than the idol worshiper. You're worse than the idol worshiper. Because the idol worshiper, we're not allowed to cheat him. But you're cheating. Today in the world, lies have become so standard, they've manipulated to such an extent that in the last 45 years, the language has changed so much that people simply do not understand the difference between right and wrong. One of the Talmidei Chachamim that lived here in America years ago, Rav Shraga Silverstein, he writes in this Sefer, The Antidote, right in the beginning, I haven't read the whole book yet, but he uses such clean language that it's really amazing that such a person, such a clean, holy mouth existed here just 40 years ago. He says the following: it was years ago that I read in the long defunct, lately exhumed Life magazine of a poll among, I forget just how many American males, purportedly establishing that a certain response, once regarded as lewd, was actually instinctive. With the inevitable conclusion, of course, that it should therefore be divested of its conventional opprobrium. In so many words, what he's saying in this ultimate clean language, Life magazine reported one day that the LGBTQ, which was back then were called homosexuals, They were saying it's instinctive. They were born that way. Now, he doesn't use that language because in his day, there was still the strange, perception of what this is. And needless to say, when they say that this is how you're born, he says, I found this strange. This is used to be considered lewd. Was inappropriate in the past. Now you're saying you're born that way? And therefore, we need to change our minds? So much has changed in 44 years since he wrote this. I was struck then, he writes, as I continue to be struck now and then by the even more frequent and more glaring recurrences of the same phenomenon, at how deftly the mass media can convert to nature what the Torah forbids. And in so many words, Rav Shraga Silverstein says what we've been saying, which is that literally what the Torah forbids, people are saying is normal. When you tell people that this is considered toeva, they tell you, no, but he was born that way. And they even find some clown rabbis to support them, whether it's the Mervis guy from England, or his boyfriend Dwick, or some other criminal that lives here in America or other countries that are in so many words saying that, yeah, God apparently made mistakes with people because they were born this way and we need to accept them as that way, and this is that way, and they're still considered orthodox this way. These rainbow people. Rainbow because that's in essence the Torah symbol for those people. For all of you who don't know, when did the rainbow come out? After Hashem destroyed the world at the time of Noach. Why did Hashem destroy the world at the time of Noach? The Zohar Kadosh says that when the rainbow type of behavior became standard, so much so that men marrying men became legal, as if it's a mitzvah, Hashem says they lost the right to live. And the animals started marrying each other from different species. God destroyed the world. At the end of the flood, God brought the rainbow as the sign of the covenant that he won't flood the world anymore. But the sages teach us that if you see a rainbow, don't point at it and say, look, it's a pretty rainbow. Because although you're right, it's a pretty rainbow, you shouldn't be so happy that it's there. Because that rainbow is a sign that if it wasn't for the covenant that God signed with Noach, right now, as you're seeing the rainbow, the world would be destroyed for the very same reason of why he destroyed it back then. Hence the reason why rainbow is their symbol and why rainbow should be their name. And it's not a coincidence that they chose it as their flag, as God is the one that runs the world. Now, they're going to tell you, and surely their rabbis are going to tell you, and their leaders are going to tell you. Interestingly enough, the Muslims haven't joined, and I'm very, very amazed by the fact that they're the one and only people that actually haven't become crazy in this aspect. I mean, certainly they have a lot of other things wrong with them, but here, they're not accepting. Many people in Africa, not accepting. But in America, everyone is accepting. Israel, everyone's accepting. Unless you're really, really glued to Hashem and not make pretend. Now, if you make pretend, you're going to rationalize and justify and say they were born this way. The use of pronouns is no longer a standard among speakers in the world. In fact, if you use pronouns, you're frowned upon and even insulted. And how could you even use pronouns like he or she or simply things that we've learned our whole lives? How could you assume that just because he has male genitalia, that means he's a male? Like, that's crazy. Like, how do you assume that just because he was given the male gender when he was born before he was able to speak for himself, and therefore he must be a male. I mean, doctors are wrong. And people are serious about this. And they're feeding their kids these hormones because apparently they're convincing the kid that he really is not a he, he's really a she, and the she is not a he. And apparently everyone is born as a mistake. And when you tell people that this is wrong, this is considered an abomination, the immediate response is, God made him this way. Now, the few heretical rabbis that support this, certainly the ones that support it publicly, are not orthodox, even if they claim to be. But the point being is, those that support it are claiming that they were born this way, and therefore we need to give them freedom, as if it's for us to give anybody. Anyone can give themselves freedom. Freedom is Torah. But this is what makes them happy, they claim. Now, I only have one question. For those that claim that people were born this way, and this makes them happy. Question, or actually I have multiple questions. Question number one. If it makes the average human being happy to be a male married to a female, why doesn't he announce it to the whole world that he wants to have special privileges and even a parade in every city, but yet you do? Why does the norm of what has been the norm throughout all of society and history not celebrated anywhere near as much or at all in comparison to this abnormal? Why do you need this? Why do you need to announce to everybody if this makes you happy and this is how you were born? If I was born a certain way, that means that I would be perfectly fine with it, and I don't necessarily need everybody else to know about it. Whether you know what I was born with or not is not your business anyway. If I was born with hair or without hair, if I was born with a birthmark or without a birthmark, if I was born with one leg or two legs, I mean, none of it is really your business. It's simply the way I was born. But yet, if they were born this way, and they feel so comfortable with this way, and it makes them happy to be this way, then why the necessity to constantly talk about it and preach it in such a fashion as if it's a new religion and belief system that everyone has to adapt? Why the missionizing? Next point, I think, is more critical than all. Usually, if you're going to be fortunate enough to meet happy people, those happy people will typically have a smile. Sometimes not necessarily a smile, but you will see a happy face. They will be energetic. They will be optimistic. They would simply be fulfilled and not really yearning for much more or at all. Hence, the reason why they're happy. Now, if I told you that the happiest guy in the world just committed suicide, you would tell me, I'm sorry, Rabbi, but if he committed suicide, he's not happy. Because people that commit suicide obviously are not happy. You don't just happy. It doesn't work that way. That means if you were not happy for a long period of time, to the point where you have lost hope in happiness and arrived at a conclusion that happiness is simply not a possibility for you ever, and the only feeling you will always have for the rest of your life is misery, then those people lose the one common denominator that all of the people throughout all of the times have always had, which is the desire to live. Every normal, sane person has a desire to live. The moment you lose your desire to live, you're declared insane. So you cannot tell me you're happy and then you kill yourself. But yet the statistics do. They declare themselves to be happier this way, to be more fulfilled this way, to be expressing who they really are this way. But yet the statistics show that the suicide rates have skyrocketed to the highest they've ever been in history, in a direct correlation to this rainbow becoming more acceptable, more standard, I would say, and simply more in your face. How is it that all this happiness is causing so much death of those happy rainbow people? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now, for any of you that are wondering, what is the Torah perspective? We all know that the Torah calls this rainbow behavior an abomination. God destroyed the world at the time of Noach. But that wasn't the only time he showed his distaste for this. Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed for this. Hence the reason why this is called, after Sodom and Gomorrah until this day, the word for rainbow people is sodomy. The biggest enemies of the Jews throughout all of history have been rainbow people. Whether it's the Egyptians, they were this way. The Canaanites, they were this way. The Romans, the Babylonians, the Greeks, they were all this way. All of the biggest enemies of the Torah have been this way. What's the common denominator? The common denominator of this abomination is that it's a physical act that leads to spiritual damage, which ends up being expressed as if it's a mental deficiency and disorder, only to end up with suicide, whether spiritual, physical, or both. This toeva has become something that people are accepting as true. So much so that they're feeding it to your kids in cartoons, in all types of papers. If you go online to buy a shirt for a boy, you're rarely going to find a normal shirt for boys that used to be considered the shirt for boys just a year or two ago. All of a sudden they have these fits, these tight fits, and colors that really belong to females. And if you have a girl and you want to buy her clothes, you may end up finding some guy clothes. The commercials that they say are on television are women with mustaches. Guys with clothes of women. Things that were literally considered lewd are being considered nature now. This is all part of the world of lies. It starts off with simply disregarding the instruction of God, the instruction of his sages that tell us to stay away from lies, whether big or small. If the teacher that's teaching you is not a teacher of truth, you have to run away from him or her. If they somehow kosher the pig, you have to run away from them. If they tell you that God needs you, you have to run away from them. If they tell you that God is a person, you have to run away from them. God died, you have to run away from them. God changed his mind, where he said at the end of prophecy was at the time of the Bet HaMikdash, but then they said, no, he changed his mind and it continued again. God said that the Torah is the only book. But then they said, no, but there's other books. And all types of other things where apparently God changes his mind, you have to run away from them. If they say God makes a mistake, you have to run away from them. If they say that they were born this way, as if it was decreed upon them to live a life of sin and not to overcome desire, you have to run away from them. It all starts with a lie that leads some people to overcome that lie and become better for it, or fall for that lie and fail as a result of it. Where the lie leads to an act. The act leads to spiritual damage. It's a physical act, but the damage is spiritual. And you can see that the spiritual damages happen when those people speak, when they correspond, when they communicate, when they express their beliefs, their ideas. You see that this person is no longer the same person that you used to know. There's something wrong with them. There's something off. They used to be normal, decent, easy to understand, easy to get along with. Now all of a sudden, they act as if the world owes them an apology and you don't even know what happened. As if the world needs to know their deepest secrets, as if anyone asked. As if the world has become simply their public stage, as if anyone invited them. You see that there's something strange about them, where they have this need for other people to also do the same thing they do. Why? No one ever told you to do this. Why do you do this to others? And you see how the lie led to a physical act that led to a spiritual damage that is now projected as a mental deformity, which then could climax with them destroying themselves and anyone around them with a fake smile along the way. Don't let the lies destroy you like it destroyed everyone before you. This too is one of the things we need to deal with and never ignore or think it's unimportant or think, oh, it's not my business. It's all of our business, Abutai. All of us have a hand in this. If we help people with the truth, we can help people become better than what they think they can. I'll finish it off with this. There was a guy, nice guy. He's been watching my shiurim for some time. And Baruch Hashem, he transformed his life and he started doing tshuva. And already for a couple of years, he's been keeping Shabbat. Apparently, in the last couple of months, he's got a little weaker after hearing some words of rabbis that you will hear yourself what they said, which led him to not keep Shabbat.
You know, you ask rabbis, the Chabadnikim and the Hasidim and all the other ones, and you say, you know what, do you honestly think God is going to be so upset with you right now? If you're a father right now and your son messes up, are you going to punish him like that? Come on, there must be some more sympathy. There must be more to God. You know, he can't be this person who just wants to punish you all the time. But you know what? He said, before holy festivals and before I give you anything, this is our covenant. Our covenant. So
he stopped keeping Shabbat because they told him that God doesn't punish. Because there must be more. So he stopped keeping Shabbat for the last couple of months. I only found out about it today. I sent him a 5-minute recording. His response was this.
Oh, that was amazing. You know what? As much as I don't want... Oh, that was amazing. You know what? As much as I don't want to hear it, and I want to lie to myself, the truth is the truth. That's it. I'm going back to keeping Shabbat. Yeah, I'm going back to keeping Shabbat. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling me the truth. I was thinking, I'm donating, Tzedakah Yatzil Mavet, he's going to forgive me, I'm his son, you know, he's going to forgive me, everything's okay. I'm just lying to myself all the time.
Rabotai Karim, this was a good Jew that started on a good path. He meant well. He donated, he learned, he did what he could. He even helped his mother do tshuva. But one day, so-called rabbis came to him and told him, come on, you think God punishes? Now, I'm sure they didn't mean to cause him to stop keeping Shabbat. I mean, after all, they portray themselves as religious. But yet, that little bit of lie was what he remembered from that conversation as the primary cause to get him to stop keeping Shabbat for 2 months. Anyone that watched my movie called Gehenom knows what that means to violate Shabbat, knows how much suffering a soul will have to endure as a result of violating Shabbat. What did it take to fix it? A little bit of truth. Truth that you've heard. Truth that all of us have seen in the books. The Rambam says that a Jew that desecrates Shabbat is considered equivalent to an idol worshiper and has no share of the world to come. Cannot be counted in a minyan, cannot be a chazan, cannot be used as a witness in a Jewish ceremony. His Judaism is on suspension. Our Judaism is on suspension. Why? Because when you desecrate Shabbat, a gift that God gave the Jewish people, as the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says, "Matana gdola yesh li beg nazai." God says, I have a great gift in my treasure chest. V'Shabbat shma, and its name is Shabbat. Go and tell Am Yisrael that I'm giving it to her, he tells Moshe. And the Gemara says that a Jew that desecrates Shabbat, it's as if he's running in the middle of the streets, yelling and screaming, I don't believe in God. When a person does such a thing, the punishment is severe, more severe than anything else. So although those nice Chabadniks that he mentions meant well by telling him, God doesn't punish. You're a father, if your son doesn't do something good, you're not going to punish him, right? You know, they rationalize. They bring any sources? Zero. They bring any truth? Zero. They bring any results? Horrible. But Baruch Hashem, whatever tzedakah that he gave and whatever mitzvahs that he did, gave him enough merits to contact the one person that cares less about his tzedakah, cares less about the potential, cares less about anything but the truth. And the reason why he changed his mind is because he heard those exact same words from me. Where I told him, I don't care if you give tzedakah ever again, or if you're going to give $1 million a minute. Nothing is going to help you if you desecrate Shabbat. You'll have no share of the world to come. You cannot buy God. And much, much more for 5 minutes. Just imagine getting a Gehenom shiur for 5 minutes. You get to keep Shabbat. The only thing that matters is that now he will have a share of the world to come. Otherwise, we'll be crying about it. So when you stick to the truth, it's easy because it becomes standard. You don't calculate how much could I lose? What if he doesn't like me? What if he doesn't donate? What if this? What if that? God runs the world. When God runs the world, you don't have to worry about anybody giving you anything. You have to worry about you giving to people the truth that they deserve. Truth that's free from the Torah. BeEzrat Hashem, you too will live the truth, say the truth, share the truth, and run away from lies. Call to B'cha B'atzlacha. We'll learn again later this week.